Hi there, Natalie with Autel Robotics. Now that you have your X-Star drone, you probably want to try and make sure that your investment is protected while it's up in the air. Luckily, the X-Star drones come with some built-in safety features to help make sure you do that. Let's go over Go Home and Failsafe. Let's get ready to fly so we can show you how it works. The Go Home function commands your aircraft to return to and land at a home point that you have specified in Starlink. This function is available in GPS flight mode, which is what your X-Star will be set to when you take it out of the box because it's the safest and easiest to use. By default, the X-Star will drop a home point where you start your motors in GPS mode. We're hovering and using the camera view in Starlink so we can see what the X-Star's camera sees. On the left side of the screen, you'll see the flight control panel. This is where we'll find the Go Home and Home Point icons. You'll also find a Go Home button on your remote controller right next to the power button. First, let's decide what our home point should be for this flight. We have two options here, either my location as the pilot or the real-time location of the aircraft. I want the X-Star to return to the spot where it's currently hovering when I tell it to go home, so I'll tap this icon. Now, if at any point in my flight I decide that I want to change the home point, I can adjust it. To reset your home point during flight, tap the pinpoint icon with an H on the left side of your screen. Tap the icon with the person to reset your home point to where you are with the remote controller. Now, let's say I've been flying here for a while and I've gotten the footage that I need. I'm ready to tell the X-Star to go home. All I have to do is press and hold the Go Home button on the remote controller, and the X-Star will maneuver back to the home point we set up earlier. Make sure that there aren't any buildings or obstacles in its path. This is important because the X-Star will be flying in a straight line back to the home point. By default, you won't be able to control the aircraft with your remote controller during its return flight. However, you'll be able to regain partial control during the landing sequence. You can also override the Go Home function by pressing and holding the pause button on your remote controller will cancel the Go Home function and allow you to regain full control. A couple things about Go Home. First, the X-Star must be above 30 meters from the ground in order to trigger Go Home. If it's lower, it'll automatically ascend to 30 meters before it comes home. You can also adjust the Go Home altitude within the Starlink app. Make sure you choose a safe altitude for your surroundings. Second, if you activate Go Home within 10 meters of the home point, it'll automatically land. You should always set your home point and your Go Home altitude at the beginning of your flight to make sure you're protected in the case of an emergency. Now, speaking of emergencies, let's go over the X-Star's Failsafe features, which will use that Go Home functionality that we just talked about to get your drone to the ground safely. Failsafe is designed to send your X-Star home or land in case of a communication loss or a low battery. Your remote controller will alert you when you've lost communication. If GPS is available, the Go Home procedure will start and it will fly back to the predetermined home point. If GPS is not available when Failsafe is activated, the aircraft will hover for 10 seconds while it attempts to re-establish connection. If the aircraft cannot establish GPS signal, it will land at its current location. The other situation that will activate the Failsafe mode is a low battery. The X-Star is constantly calculating how much power it needs to return home and land safely. When that minimum battery level is reached, the Go Home sequence will automatically be triggered. When it reaches the minimum level it needs to return home, the Failsafe mode will automatically begin the Go Home process. It will also activate when you receive the low battery warning, and by default, you get that warning at about 25% battery. Your remote controller and Starlink app will alert you of a low battery warning, and you can also tell by looking at your aircraft's rear LED lights will return to a slow flashing red. The low battery warning is designed to return your drone home safely. However, if you choose to override it, the next warning is the critical low battery warning. This will trigger an auto land sequence wherever the aircraft is when it reaches the minimum battery level to land. Remember, these warnings and Failsafe system are in place to protect your aircraft. So now you have a basic understanding of how Go Home and Failsafe work. And let me tell you, mastering the home point has been key for avoiding some scary situations. I'll see you next time.